All right. Okay. Namo Buddhaya. Suki Hontu, everyone. Okay. Thank you, Brother T, for the introduction. Sorry, I missed my my introduction here, but nevertheless, I really appreciate it. Um, Before that, I also like to share my gratitude to my teacher and mentor, Brother Ananda Fong, who is also your teacher. Because of him, I was able to opportunity to take over this topic from Brother Ananda Fong. So, without further ado, okay, we already paid homage to the Buddha just now, all right, and I would like to skip on to. So, a very good afternoon. Today, we're going to have lecture one on Saṅghānussati, the recollection of the Saṅgha. Okay. All right, before that, let's take a look at the contents of our topics today. First, we're going to touch base on the origin of the Saṅgha, and then we're going to look very briefly on what is the Saṅgha, on Buddha's enlightenment, two kinds of Saṅgha, the fourfold assembly, the Chatuparisa. Then we look at the recollection of the Saṅgha, following by the 9 virtues of the Saṅgha, 4 stages of awakening, monastic Saṅgha, and the creation of the noble Saṅgha, and the end of Saṅgha. First, we look at the origin of the Saṅgha. You already about this from your previous lesson, so I'm going to go briefly on this. So the origin of the Saṅgha, so apparently after Brahma Sahampati, invitation to Bodh Gaya, right? So the Buddha enlightenment, he perceived that his 8 companions, the 5 ascetics, right? They were residing at the deer park at Isipatthana near Benares, which is modern Varanasi. The Buddha proceeded there to expound the Dhamma to his 5 ascetic companions, namely Kondana, Badiya, Vapa, Mahanama, and Asaji of the Brahmin clan. So this served as how shall I say, as a revision for your previous lesson. So you can see the map here. This is Bodh Gaya and this is Sarnath, and Varanasi is in the triangular symbol here. So now the Buddha arrived at the deer park in Isipatthana on the full moon day of Asaha. So 2 months after Vaisakha, and delivered his first discourse, which is the Dhammacakkavartana Sutta, which you can find in the Samyutta Nikaya 56.11, or setting the wheel of Dhamma in motion. So hearing this, Deva and Brahmas of all the other planes also raised the same joyous cry. The light of Dhamma illuminated the whole world and brought peace and happiness to all beings. Then the Blessed One uttered the paean of joy. He says, Anasi vata bo kondano. Anasi vata bo kondanoti. So basically what it means is, right, verily or indeed, Kondana has understood. As you know, that Kondana is one of the first, the 5 ascetics. So he was the first one who understood. So what is it that he understood? Basically is the teaching of the Buddha, the 4 Noble Truths. So therefore, Venerable Kondana was named as Anatta Kondana. So if you look at Sarnath also referred to as Saranagat, Isipatthana, Risipatthana, Megadaya, or Mirgadawa. It is a place located 10 kilometers or 6.2 miles northeast of Varanasi, near the confluence of Ganges and the Varuna River in Uttar Pradesh, India. The term Isipatthana, means in Pali, and Rishi in Sanskrit refer to an accomplished and enlightened person. So Isipatthana therefore translates to the place where holy man descended, or the hill of fallen sages. Right? So in Pali, Isi means seer or sage, and Patthana means the fall or land altogether. So it is a gathering place of the seers. So from the beginning, the Buddha cautioned them to avoid the 2 extremes of self-indulgence or kamasukali yoga and self-mortification or atali kalimatta nugoya, as both do not lead to perfect peace and enlightenment. So the former, which is the self-indulgence, retards one's spiritual progress, and the latter, which is the self-mortification, weakens one's intellect. So the Buddha says that he refers to himself as the Tathagata, realizing the error of both these two extremes, followed a middle path. So now this path or way was discovered by himself, is known as Majjhima Patipada, the middle way. Now what is this middle way? The Buddha replies, it is none other than the Noble Eightfold Path. In Pali, it's called Arya Atangagika Magga, and expounded the Four Noble Truths. The Noble Truth in Pali is called the Arya Satya in detail. So then the Buddha preached his second discourse, the Analatakana Sutta, in Samyutta Nikaya 22.59, or is translated as the Discourse on the Not-Self Characteristics, hearing which the Venerable Kondana became the first Arahant and the most senior member of the Saṅgha, and all attained Arahantship later. So at this juncture, it is notable to say that Venerable Asaji is one of the five ascetics who converted the great Sariputta, the chief disciple of the Buddha. This is a side note. When the Buddha expounded his teaching, the minds of the group of five bhikkhus or the ascetic were freed of defilements without any attachment. Thereafter, a series of conversions took place after hearing the Dhamma from the Buddha, and thus the founding of the order of the Saṅgha. Now, Yasakula Putta, or in short called Yasa, Putta means son, the son of Yasa. Yasakula Putta, a son of a millionaire, attained Sotapati. Right? Sotapati means stream entry, which is the first stage of the path. And later, he became an Arahant, which is an enlightened being, which is the fourth stage of the path. Now, his father became the first lay male disciple, or we call Upasaka, and his mother and his former wife also became the first two lay women disciples called Upasika. The Venerable Yasa, together with his 54 friends, hearing of the Venerable Yasa's conversion, they also joined him in the order and also attained Arahantship. Now there are the first 60 Arahants, excluding the Buddha in this world, set off for disseminating the Buddha's teaching. So that at Uruvela, there lived three method hair called Jatila. They were the method hair ascetic known as Uruvela Kassapa, Nadi Kassapa, and Gaya Kassapa. They were all brothers, living separately with 500, 300, and 200 disciples respectively, and they also entered the order and obtained the higher ordination as monastic. Right? It's called Upasampada. Two young spiritual seekers named Upatissa and Kolita, having met Arahant Asaji, entered the Buddha's order, both destined to become the two chief disciples of the Buddha, attained Arahantship, and later they were known as the famous Venerable Sariputta and Venerable Mahamoggallana, respectively. Thus, the socialization of Buddhism among the spiritual and the higher class continued. So this is just a very brief background of how the Saṅgha was formed from the time of the awakening of the Buddha. So now let's take a look at what is the Saṅgha. So now after the Buddha's enlightenment, right, very quickly the Buddhas arrived at the Deer Park in Isipatthana on the full moon day, 2 months after Vesakha, and did the first discourse, and then hearing this, Kondana gained the eye of truth, or called the Dhamma Chakku, or the Dhamma eye, as a first glimpse of the Nibbana. So Kondana asked Buddha for ordination and was admitted as a bhikkhu. Bhikkhu is Pali word for a Buddhist monk, becoming the first member of the Saṅgha. So Kondana became the first member of the Saṅgha, or the Buddhist order of monks. As until that time, there had appeared in the world only the Buddha and the Dhamma. The Saṅgha was not established. So this event clearly marks the completion of the triple gem of the Buddha, Dhamma, and Saṅgha. It was the arising of the first member of the Saṅgha, and that is Kondana, who since then became known as Anatta Kondana, and he was the first man to see truth after the Buddha. and also the first to be admitted as a bhikkhu. What are the two kinds of Saṅghā? So in Buddhism, Saṅghā refers to the monastic communities of bhikkhu, which means monks. Bhikkhu is nuns. These communities are traditionally referred to as Bhikkhu Saṅghā or Bhikkhuni Saṅghā. As a separate category, these Buddhists who have attained any of the four stages of enlightenment, whether or not they are members of the monastic community, are referred to as the Arya Saṅghā, the Noble Saṅghā. We will get to know more of this terminology in the following slides. So just very follow through with the slide presentation. In the glossary of Buddhist terms, the word Saṅghā has two levels of meaning. So during the time of the Buddha, on the ideal side, they call it the Arya level. It denotes all the Buddha's followers, or lay or ordained. Buddha's followers, lay or ordained, who have at least attained the level of Sotapanna, which is the first stage of the path. On conventional side, which is referred as Sammuti level, it denotes the orders of the bhikkhus and the bhikkhunis. Now, another interpretation, the Sāvaka Saṅghā, or community of noble disciples, also called the Arya Saṅghā or the Noble Saṅghā, and Bhikkhu Saṅghā, or the community of bhikkhus or monks, also called the Sammuti Saṅghā or the conventional Saṅghā. Now, you feel that this is a little bit more confusing? Let's take a look at another interpretation. The disciples of the Buddha here, Sunati, which is a Pali word for here. So the disciples of the Buddha hear attentively the Blessed One's instructions. Thus, they are his disciple, and they refer as the Sāvaka. As you can see, they are Sāvaka Saṅghā. All right, so Sāvaka Saṅghā during the time of the Buddha. Traditionally, Saṅghā is composed of the four groups: the monks, the bhikkhus, the nuns, the bhikkhunis, the layman, upasaka, laywoman, upasika. The Saṅghā is part together with the Buddha and the Dhamma. The Dhamma teaching of the Triple Gem, which is the Tira, also known as the Threefold Refuge or the Juice, which is a basic creed of Buddhism. So this is a interpretation, perhaps maybe clearer. Arya Saṅghā, right, or the Noble Saṅghā. Arya Saṅghā is translated as Noble Saṅghā, noble community, or the community of noble ones. It refers to the community of the noble ones, known as Arya Pugala. Arya means noble, Pugala means persons. Those disciples of the Buddha who have reached the highest stage of realization. Now, what is this highest stage of realization? So, as you can see here, these are the four stages. A stream enterer called a Sotapanna, a once returner, Sakadagami, non-returner, Anagami, and an Arhat. Meaning to say the Arya Saṅghā are basically encompassing all these stages, which is the higher stages of realization. The Arya Saṅghā of the Blessed One disciples who have practiced well. Not only that, how they achieve this, they have to practice well, who practice straightforwardly, who have practiced methodically, who have practiced masterfully. In other words, the four types of the noble disciples. When taken as pairs, the 8, when taken as individual types, they are the Saṅghā of the blessed disciples. And they are the worthy of gifts, worthy of hospitality, worthy of offerings, worthy of respect, the incomparable field of merit of the world. So you can get this from Mahanama Sutta, which is in Anguttara Nikaya 11.112. We will get to know more about this, right, in the following slides. So this is just an introductory of what Arya Saṅghā is all about. Just bear in mind, Arya Saṅghā is mainly the Noble Saṅghā, and they are the disciples of the Buddha have reached the highest stages of realization. Now, comparing with the conventional Saṅgha, which is known as Sammuti Saṅgha. Sammuti Saṅgha of bhikkhus, on the other hand, simply consists four or more monks. And if you have four monks, you can establish a conventional Saṅgha. They are noble or ordinary. What that means? Because they still possess all 10 factors that bind them to the rounds of rebirth, but will always strive to reach the noble stage, which means they are still in training, right? They have already understood the teaching of the Buddha, but they're still in training, and they still have the 10 factors, right, to train and to eliminate all factors. The Sammuti Saṅgha include the Buddhist monks, nuns who have renounced. So all these are the ordinary monks to have renounced the domestic life to cultivate the Buddhist path of liberation and reside mostly in the Buddhist monastery. If you look at this explanation, you will understand clearer the difference between Arya and Sammuti Saṅgha with reference to Venerable Kondanya. So Venerable Kondanya gained the eye of truth, Dhammacakku. I remember he became the first member of the Arya Saṅgha because he had reached one of the four stages of enlightenment, all right, the Sotapanna stage. When he was ordained a bhikkhu, so after he has reached the Dhammacakku, right, he asked to be ordained. So the Buddha ordained him, he became a bhikkhu. So he became the first member of the Sammuti Saṅgha. Thus, the event of the first sermon marks the beginning of both the Arya Saṅgha, the noble Saṅgha of disciples who have reached the realization of the highest point, and of the Sammuti Saṅgha, which means Venerable Kondana is also Arya Saṅgha and Sammuti Saṅgha. Right? So he joins the member of the Saṅgha. So that is a illustration of depiction of what is Arya and Sammuti Saṅgha. Now, we move on to what is called the Fourfold Assembly. In Pali, Chatu Parisa. Right? Chatu is four, Parisa is the assembly. So, in other words, it's called the Fourfold Assembly. And who are these Fourfold Assembly? Now, according to the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, last days of the Buddha in Digha Nikaya 16, number 16, Buddha proclaimed that he would not pass away until he had established members of each of the four in being wise, the well-trained, and self-confident. So in Pali, wise, yata, well-trained, vinyata, and self-confident, visarada. Right? So Buddha says, I will not pass away until I establish this, properly. So this passage makes it unmistakably clear that an essential foundation for the Buddha's mission and a Buddha's mission of teaching the Dharma was that the bhikkhus as well as bhikkhuni and the upasaka and upasika, they are wise, they are well-trained, and they are confident. So you can also read more in this sutta called Pasadika Sutta, the inspiring discourse in the Digha Nikaya number 29. So according to the Lakkhana Sutta, the marks of a great man, also in Digha Nikaya number 30, the wheel marks on the sole of the Buddha's feet foretold his destiny of being surrounded by these four assemblies. So in this sutta, it's already indicated to say that the Buddha, right, it will be surrounded by these four assemblies, this Chatuparisa. This makes possession of four assemblies an integral, in fact, indispensable step of the Buddha's ministries. Right? So in this chart here, you can see the monastic, the bhikkhu, bhikkhuni, encompassing the upasaka and upasika. Now, a discourse in the Anguttara Nikaya highlights the rather unfortunate condition of being reborn in a border country, right? Which in a country where the four assemblies of Buddhist disciples cannot be found. So this you can find in the Anguttara Nikaya, or the sutta called Kana Sukha, Lost Opportunity in AN 8.29. Now, this discourse says that we are, as humans, we are rather fortunate because we are where the Dharma occurs, where there is Buddha. But the situation where there is no Dharma, where it is a country is called border country, where there is no four assemblies. And when there is no four assemblies, there's no bhikkhus, there's no upasakas, right? The people there will have no opportunity to learn the Dharma. So this is why I call lost opportunities. The recollection of the Saṅghā. Now, Mahānama Sutta, which is in AN 6.10, just read out very quickly. It says, firstly, a noble disciple recollects the realized one, the Buddha. Furthermore, a noble disciple recollects the teaching, which is the Dhamma. Furthermore, a noble disciple recollects the Saṅghā. And the Saṅghā of the Buddha's disciples is practicing the way that's good, direct, methodical, and prosper. So you can realize here is still practicing. Practicing is the word, practicing the way. It consists of the four pairs, the 8 individuals. This is the Saṅghā of the Buddha's disciples that is worthy of offerings, dedicated to the God, worthy of hospitality, worthy of a religious donation, worthy of greeting with palms, and is the supreme field of merit for the world. Following slides, we will be learning exactly what are these referring in detail, one by one. Right. So now this, just look at the one that's highlighted in yellow. The one in blues are just a repeat, right? And then you just take a look what's the meaning. When a noble disciple recollects the Saṅghā, the mind is not full of greed, hate, and delusion. They are called a noble disciple who lives in balance among people who are unbalanced and lives untroubled among people who are troubled. They've entered the stream of the teaching and developed the recollection of the Saṅghā. So they have entered the stream. Okay, and we will be looking at what is this stream is all about later. Furthermore, a noble disciple recollects their own ethical conduct, which is unbroken, impeccable, spotless, and unmarked, liberating, praised by sensible people, not mistaken, and leading to immersion. When a noble disciple recollects their ethical conduct, the mind is not full of greed, hate, and delusion. Furthermore, a noble disciple recollects their own generosity. I'm so fortunate, so very fortunate. Among people full of the stain of stinginess, I live at home, rid of stinginess, freely generous, open-handed, loving to let, committed to charity, loving to give and to share. So when a noble disciple recollects their own generosity, the mind is not full of greed, hate, and delusion. So you can see here how a noble disciple recollects the Saṅghā. The mind is not full of greed, hate, delusion. They recollect their own ethical conducts and they recollect their own generosity. Furthermore, they also recollect the deities, right? Not forgetting the deities. They are the gods of the 4 great kings, the gods of the 33, the gods of Yama, the joyful gods, the gods who love to create, the gods who control the creation of others, the gods of Brahma host, and gods even higher than this. When these deities passed away from here, they were reborn there because of the faith, ethics, learning, generosity, and wisdom. This is where the training comes in. With the faith, ethics, learning, and generosity and wisdom, right? Upon their death, they are reborn in all these heavenly realms. So I too, this I too means referring to Buddha. Say I too have the same kind of faith, the ethics, the learning, the generosity, and wisdom. So when a noble disciple reflects the faith, ethics, learning, generosity, and wisdom of both themselves and the deities, the mind is full of hate and delusion. So at that time, the mind is unswerving based on the deities. A noble disciple whose mind is unswerving finds joy in the meaning and the teaching, and finds joy connected with the teaching. When you're joyful, rapture springs up. When the mind is full of rapture, body becomes tranquil. When the body is tranquil, you feel bliss. When you're blissful, the mind becomes immersed in samadhi. And this is the recollection from a noble disciple recollects the deities. Yeah, when a noble disciple reached the fruit, understood the instruction, right? This is the kind of meditation they frequently practice. So when it is just like the Buddha-nussati and the Dhamma-nussati, the Saṅghā-nussati. So Saṅghā-nussati is actually an object for meditation, and this is usually practiced by the Arya Saṅgha. So in a way, they will recollect the Saṅghā-nussati in this manner. So Saṅghā-nussati, as I mentioned, was a subject of meditation, like the Saṅgha refuge. It's confined only to the Arya Saṅgha, whereby one recollects the 9 virtues of this noble order to establish mindfulness. The manner of recollection is similar to the recollection of the Buddha-nussati, but here one recites the 9 virtues of the Saṅgha as follows. I'm sure you are familiar with this, right? And if you go to temple or you recite at home, you will recite this after the Buddha-nussati, after the Buddha, the Dhamma, and now the Saṅgha. Right? So the Supanipano Bhagavato Savaka Sangho, Ujupatipano Bhagavato Savaka Sangho, Naya Patipano Bhagavato Savaka Sangho, Samichi Patipano Bhagavato Savaka Sangho. Now, Supatipano, we will look at it in word by word. It means of good conduct. Right? Patipano means is training, is a conduct here. Su is in prefix means very. So we will have it in the next slides on a word for word vocabulary. But in this manner, you can see Supatipano means of good conduct. Bhagavato means the blessed one. Savaka means the disciple, and Sangho the community. Ujupatipano is of right conduct. Naya Patipano means of wise conduct. Samichi Patipano means of dutiful conduct. Yadidam Chatari Purisa Yugani Atta Purisa Pugala Esa Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Ahuneyo Ahuneyo Dakineyo Anjali Karaniyo Anuttarang Punya Ketang Lokasati. So Yadidam, this, Chatari means 4, Purisa person, Yugani pair, Atta 8, Purisa person, Pugala individual. Esa is here, the Blessed One Bhagavato, Savaka disciple, and the Sangho. Anuyo means worthy of offerings, Pahuneyo worthy of hospitality, Dakineyo worthy of gifts, Anjali Karaniyo worthy of reverential salutation, Anuttarang incomparable, Punya Ketang field of merit, and Lokasa to the world. T is just ending of a quote. So we will look at this individually in the following slides. So this is the whole rendition, right? If you were to recite, you have the Pali version and the English translations, right? So I'm going to skip this one here, and we will look at, before we look into detail, let's take a look at the benefits of reflecting upon qualities of Saṅgha. As long as someone reflects upon the qualities of the Saṅgha, his mind is invaded neither by greed, nor by anger, nor by delusion. He has a right state of mind, being inspired by the Saṅgha. And when he has suppressed the hindrances, the jhana factors drive single mind mode. Right? We learn about the 5 hindrances. All right, so meaning to say, through his meditation practice, if he has suppressed all his hindrances, definitely, he will reach the jhana factors. Right? Furthermore, when a person reflects upon the qualities of the Sangha, he is respectful and deferential towards the Sangha. Now, he attains faithfulness and has much happiness and gladness. Again, through the meditation process, right, because he have the full faith in the Dharma and he practice diligently, and through that, suppressing the hindrances and going through the jhana factors, and he will get the bliss, the rapture, the bliss, and the happiness. So he also overcomes fear and dread. He's able to bear the pain and comes to feel as if he were living in the Sangha's presence, and the mind aims at attaining the virtues of the Sangha. The body who dwells in the reflection of the Sangha qualities becomes as worthy of veneration as Upasata house. Upasata house means a chapter house where the Sangha assemblies. When he encounters an opportunity for wrongdoing, he has a strong awareness of conscience and shame as he were in presence of the Sangha. If he comprehends no higher, he will be at least born in a happy state. Meaning to say is that after he has suppressed the hindrances, he get the jhana factors, and he is aiming towards right attaining the virtues of the Sangha. And if he cannot comprehend no higher, right, he will be born in a happy state. So now the next following slides, we will be looking at the 9 virtues of the Sangha individually. So this will give you an idea of what we are reciting right, in every day in our prayers or when we go to the temples and what refers to. First one, the first virtue, which is Supatipano Bhagavato Sabha Sangho. Before we look at the text here, let's look at vocabulary. Saṅghānussati. Sangha means various I would say meaning. Sangha could mean the community, the monastic order, or the assembly of monks. Anusati means recollection or remembrance, calling to mind. That's anusati. So combining this, a compound word called Saṅghānussati, it means recollection of the community or recollection of the qualities of the community. Supatipano, su is a prefix, right? Anything to do with su is a prefix. One of the prefix, it means well, easy, right, good, or thoroughly. So if you put supatipano in front of the patipano, right, which means practice well. Patipano means practicing. Literally means gone along. So I go along with the practice. I go along with the principle. So patipano. So if you put the compound word prefix in front, supatipano, which means practice well, practice very well, all right, well conducted. That's another translation, or the good way. Right? Su also means good. So the good way. Now, Savaka Sangho, as earlier we mentioned, a Savaka means a person, Sunati. Sunati means hearer. So in those days, olden days during the time of the Buddha, obviously there's no modern devices and so on. There's not even papers or pencils or whatever, easily at hand. So most of them will go and listen to the Dhamma. So when they listen to the Dhamma, as you can see from this picture illustration, the monks are sitting in front and listening to the Dharma by the Buddha. They are called hearer. They are called listener. And that's why they are referring to as the Savaka Sangho, right? The hearer, the listener, their disciple, the community. Right. So that goes with the vocabulary side. Now let's go back to this word, Supatipano Bhagavato Savaka Sangho, which means of good conduct. Supatipano, of good conduct is the order of the disciples of the Blessed One. Bhagavato, Blessed One, Savaka, the disciples, Sangho. Now, the Arya Sangha, which is the community of the disciples of the Blessed One, has entered on a way. What is this one way? This way is the Patipana. That is the right way. What is the right way? Right way, which is the Sama Patipada. Sama, which is the right. Not just the way. It is the right way. It is a straight way. Okay? The way that is irreversible. the way that is conformity. Conformity with what? With the truth. Satya, right? The truth. Buddha only teach the truth. Conformity with the truth. The way there is no opposition. As you know, during the time of the Buddha, there are so many religious teachers we're talking about, so many theories, right? So this way, right, is no opposition. The way that is regulated by the Dharma, right? It is very, it goes by the principle, irreversible, regulated by the Dharma. The disciples of the Buddha here means sunati, hear attentively the Buddha's one's instruction. Thus, they are his disciple, right? The disciple here known as Savaka. Savaka means hearers. So the disciples of the Blessed One practice the threefold path of liberating, consisting of morality, sila, concentration, samadhi, and wisdom, panya, which is the right or the perfect way to attain nibbana. So if you were to say the right way that is reversible and so on, what is it referring to? This is referring to this, the threefold training, the morality, sila, samadhi, panya, right? Which leads to the perfect way to attain nibbana. No opposition, regulated by the Dhamma. That is what it means. Supatipano, Bhagavato, Savaka, Sangho. So you know about this chart. This is the Eightfold Path, right? So the one that is the Arya Satya, the Pancha, the five precepts, and all the jhanas. Okay. So I'm not going to go through this. You know already about the Eightfold Path, the threefold training that comprises of Sila, which is the right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. Okay. Then we have the right speech, right action, right livelihood, and right understanding, right view, right thoughts, intention. All these falls under the wisdom side. The next one, we look at Uju Patipano Bhagavato Savaka Sangho. Of upright conduct is the order of the disciples of the Blessed One. All right. So let's look at again the vocabulary here. Right, down below, Uju Patipano. What is Uju? Uju means straight, upright. Okay, straight upright. What do you mean by straight upright? Okay, so meaning straight means it's true, it's directly, it's the right. And patipano, as we say, it's the practicing, gone along. So you can see all the nine virtues got patipano. Patipano means they're all training. So now this is training in what way? In the straight way, in the upright way. So let's take a look. The disciples of the Blessed One practice the straight, forwardly, the threefold path. Okay, so the straight way. And which is the middle path. What is the straight? What is the threefold path? The middle path. The middle path is called the Majjhima Patipata, that avoids the two extremes, sensual pleasure, Saṅghānugoya, and self-mortification, Natakila Matanugoya, and they practice the way of the abandonment of faults of bodily, verbal, and mental crookedness and tortuousness. The practice of this path will lead one straight to the state of Nibbana and liberation from the cycle of death and rebirth. And you see here, it says, lead one straight way, only one straight way to the state of Nibbana, not crooked, not tortuousness, and this is the straight way, right? So this is what we call Uju Patipano, or upright conduct, right? Meaning practicing straightly, correctly, according to the Noble Eightfold Path that leads to Nibbana, and Nibbana, which is called the truth. Right? So the practice they give up, they give their lives. You know, as a Savaka, they give up their lives. Okay, they would rather break the precept. They were rather, they rather than breaking the precepts. Okay, right? Then to die. Example, a monk who died rather than destroying a plant. So, meaning to say, what I'm trying to say is, between the monk, he would rather die than breaking, the destroying the plant. by breaking precept. So that's how a monk can become uh, so when they do the training, they are so proper, right? They will not avoid any deviation, straight time. The Buddha saying in the deer park at the Isipatana, there the Buddha addressed a group of 5 mendicants. Right? So you can see from this Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta in the Samyutta Nikaya 56.11. He says, mendicant, too extreme, should not be cultivated by one who has gone forth. What two? Indulgence in sensual pleasures, which is low, crude, ordinary, ignoble, and pointless. And indulgence in self-mortification, which is painful, noble, and pointless. So the Buddha advice says that avoiding these two, right, the realized one work up by understanding the middle way of practice, which gives vision and knowledge and leads to peace, direct knowledge, awakening, and extinguishment. Right. So that is where what the Buddha say, practice forwardly. And what is the middle way of practice? It is simply the Noble Eightfold Path, the Arya Atangika Magga, that is the right view, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right immersion. This is the middle way of practice, right, as what the Buddha says. Coming to the third one, Naya Patipano Bhagavato Savaka Sangho. Again, let's look at vocabulary here. Naya with the wavy N here. Naya Patipano. Naya means method or system or a means or way. Again, Patipano means practicing. So if you were to see the text here, the disciples of the Blessed One practice to realize Nibbana. Conduct or practice of the threefold path or the Noble Eightfold Path to gain insight into the way things are with the aim of realizing the Nibbana. So this is a method, right? So which means there must be a method how to attain Nibbana, right? So the method here is all referring to the threefold training. That is the method, right? I believe if you were to compare in the corporate world, there's always a method, right? Method in organization could be their own principles, right? So this, they also have the path. The path is the Noble Eightfold Path to gain Nibbana. So on a sidetrack, let's take a look what is Nibbana. And I'm sure you have already understood that, but nevertheless, let's recap. Nibbana means this is peaceful, this is sublime. That is, the stilling of all activities, the letting go of all attachments, the ending of craving, fading away, cessation, and extinguishment. This is an excerpt from Ananda Sutta in AM 3.32. So approaching the total freedom from dukkha, the Blessed One picking up a little bit of dust with a tip in his fingernail, said to the monks, so what do you think, monks, which is greater, the little dust I have picked up with the tip of my fingernail or the great earth? The great earth is far greater, Lord, they say. The little bit of dust the Blessed One has picked up with the tip of his fingernail is next to nothing. It's not 100, 1,000, or 100,000. This little bit of dust the Blessed One has picked up with the tip of his fingernail, when compared with the great earth. So, what does it mean here? Okay, which means that when you have reached at least the lower stage of awakening, right? That would be the far greater than what is under what they have picked up with the fingernail, right? Or the greater earth. So with this, the training is very, very important. Right. I may not be able to explain this better, But if you were to look at this sutta, you will find the explanation more clearly in terms of that. So again, it says that the the one the Blessed One has picked up with the tip of his fingernail when compared to the great earth. Okay, so the monk says that the great earth is far greater, Lord. The little bit of dust the Blessed One has picked up with the tip of fingernail is next to nothing, right? So which means that the root here, the root of suffering is craving. So how do we eliminate these defilements here? So it is true the threefold training, right? Or the noble eightfold path. So in order to gain insight into the things, right? So to aim to gain insight into the things to reach nibbana, right? The training is very, very important. Saṅghānussati Bhagavato Savaka Saṅgho. So this is in regards to the dutiful conduct is the order of the disciples of the Blessed One. The disciple of the Blessed One practiced to be worthy of veneration. The Saṅgha has practiced the proper way because it has practiced the way of those who are worthy of proper acts. The four pairs of the noble person are as follows. Right. So if you look at again the word here, Samichi Patipano, Samichi means right way, the correct course or the proper procedure. Right. Once again, the right correct course or the proper procedure, all these link to the Noble Eightfold Path. The Noble Eightfold Path is the only way that leads you to Nibbana. Right. So here, if you look at the how do we explain this? The Saṅgha has practiced proper way, the four pairs. If you were to look at the one realizing the first pair, the one realizing the pair of stream entry, this is called the Sotapatti Magga. And the one realizing the fruit of stream winning, Sotapatti Phala. Right? So the next step, I'm going to explain to you clearer what does it mean. But meanwhile, for this purpose, you just take a look at this, meaning the one realizing the part of the stream entry, it is still in training, right? They're still in training. But the one who realizing the fruit is already achieved at least the pala, the magga, which means the fruit to fruition. The fruition means the pala, right? And it goes same manner for the next one, which is the ones returning, right? There is a path for the ones returning, and then there's also a fruition for the ones returning, or they call it the Sakadagami. And following suit, also the path of non-return and the fruition of the non-return, the Anagami, and finally, of course, the Arahant. Okay, so they have this, the Magga and the Phala. So we need to be clear of what is the Magga and what is the Phala. The Magga is simply basically, they are still in the training process. Right? They have not reached the goal yet. Right? When they have reached the goal, they call the fruition. That is the Phala. And this is where I said refer. We will refer to the next slides, yeah, for a clearer understanding. Now take a look at this one here. They should reflect along the path I went for alms, or in the place I wander for alms, or along the path that I return for alms. Was there any desire or greed or hate or delusion or repulsion in my heart for sights known by the eye? So this you can get from this sutta called, this is Pindapata, the purification of alms food in Majjhima Nikaya 151. Right? I can relate to this because recently I was in the novitiate program. Right? So we went for the Pindapat as well. So what does it mean here is along the path, which means along the path. Right? If you see this picture here, so they can go along the path. The path of what? Along the path of the road, along the path to the village, and along the path, along the road. So along the path, that I went for alms, or any place I wander, I'll be walking on the streets, walking along the villages, along the path, then I returned from alms. During that time, what was the state of my mind? right? Do I have desire? Do I have greed or hate or delusion or repulsion in my heart or any sight known by my eye? So if you can see, right, if you can realize that when the monastic or the bhikkhus, when they go for alms, if you look at their expressions, um, basically there's no eye contact, right? So the eye contact, the better, right? Because this is where we call it uh, sight, see things, right? So basically we want to uh, that we do not want to create any new desire by looking at. So we are walking in a very calm, very serene. Our state of mind is not with desire, right? Avoiding any desire or greed. If we see anything, right, that's where, you know, your eye, you have contact with something, desire kicks in, right? So suppose that upon checking, medical knows that desire or greed or hate or delusion or repulsion in the heart, they should make an effort to give up all those unskillful qualities. And this is what the Buddha has advised, the bhikkhus. And the bhikkhus, if you see that during that time, you must continue with training. That's why I call the training progress, right? So when they need in their mind, right? Then they say, suppose that upon checking, a medic knows that no such desire or greed or hate or delusion or repulsion in the heart, they should meditate with rapture and joy, training day and night in skillful qualities. Basically, encourage them to continue to train the state of mind, right? And also meaning to say that to give up, right? Give up uh, for the having given up the five hindrances and having understood the five grasping of the five aggregates, right? For sound, smell, nose, taste, tongue, touches, body, thoughts known by the mind. So this is continuous training we're talking about. So if you want to look back of the dutiful conduct of the order of the disciples of the Blessed One, so how do they practice? Practice the proper way. And this is how they practice one of the sutta here, even from going for alms round, right? The state of mind, you still continue to be practiced. Practice the proper way, right? In order for you to reach to the highest level of liberation. So here, this is just a recap on the four virtues. So the Saṅghā, Supatipanno, Bhagavata, Sangho is to practice well. Ujupatipanno, Bhagavata, Savaka, Sangho is to practice straightforwardly. Nayapatipanno, Bhagavata, Savaka, Sangho, practice methodically, right? Practice systematically, okay, according to the threefold training, right? What we call the Sila, Samadhi, and Panya. And Samicipatipano Bhagavato Savuka Sangho, you have to practice it masterfully, right? Which means you have to practice it diligently. Because it's just not how shall I say, it is not a temporary practice. The moment they gone forth, it is the transformation, right? This practice is the transformation of their life. Right? They have to change the lifestyle. That's why they have to practice well, practice straightforwardly, practice methodically, and practice masterfully, right? To reach that higher stage that the Buddha has taught. And the next level is just more on um, the resultants. The next one is the result of all the practice. Yadidam Chattari Purisa Yugani Ta Purisa Pugala. So in other words, four types of the noble disciple, when taken as pairs, the eight, when taken as individual types. So they are the Saṅghā of the Blessed One. When they have practiced well, when they have achieved the results, right? They are now they can be called the four types of the noble disciples, the Arya Saṅghā, when they're taken the pairs, right? Because they practice, they have gone through the path, and then they have the fruition of the each individual stage. And this is because of the great diligence that they have put through. And once they have that, this is where the results. right? What were the results they can attain? They are the Saṅghā of the Blessed One, and they are worthy of gifts. They're worthy of hospitality, worthy of offerings, worthy of respect, incomparable field of merit in the world. And this is what it meant. Right? They are worthy of gifts, worthy of hospitality, offerings, and incomparable to the world. So here, the four pairs of people, that is the one who is on the road from the first stage of liberation and the one who has reaped its fruits, and so on for the second, the third, and the fourth stages. Right? So the what do you call it? The Sotapanna, Sakadagami, Anagami, and Arahant. So the eight types of people describe the same four noble disciples, only now not by taking them in pairs, but by naming all the eight individually. Esa Bhagavato Savaka Sangho, it is these eight people who are meant by the noble order. What is particularly important about this sentence is that the noble order does not simply refer to every monk and Buddhist, but only to those who have understood the Dhamma and Nibbana from their own experience, with the four stages indicating a different depth of this experience. So if you can notice just now the slide, we say the what do you call it, path and the fruition. All right. So so that is what it meant. It meant that not just any monk or Buddhist, but it's those who understood the Dhamma, right, and the Nibbana from own experience. So this is what it meant, right? The four pairs and the four what do you call it? The eight individuals. All right. Having mentioned about this, now let's take a look at these um the what do you call it, the resultants, the word they are worthy of gifts. Why are they worthy of gifts? How is so following this, if one called Anueyo. Anueyo means it's worthy of offerings. What is worthy of offerings means? Being worthy of receiving offerings brought even from far afar. What should be brought and given is a gift. The gift is known as ahuna, literally means sacrifice. Right? In other words, some translation called donation. The meaning is what is to be brought even from far away and donated to the virtuous. Okay, so even from afar. Now, you will get to know what is this meaning here. The community, right? The community we are referring to the Saṅgha community. The community is fit to receive that gift. Ahuna. The gift is called ahuna, which is called literally means sacrifice here, because it makes it bear fruit. Thus, it is fit for gifts. Fit for gifts means ahuneya. The gift is called ahuna. Fit for gift is called ahuneya. A gift, ahuna, is what one brings that is fit for offering, meaning what is brought from afar and worthy of being given to the morally virtuous, the name given for the four requisites, like the robes, the food, robes, medicine, and lodging. Four requisites, so to speak. Right? So this four requisite, right, is considered the gift. And this gift is worthy of offerings to the Saṅgha. So the Arya Saṅgha can, on account of these four attributes as conditions, the four requisite as condition, such as Supatipano, bestow great merit to the donors who offer them the four bhikkhu requisites. Therefore, if the donor has these articles ready to offer when the Arya Saṅgha goes for alms collection, he should offer them gladly. The donor should offer these four requisites to the Arya Saṅgha gladly. Now, if those articles are not at hand, he should try to procure them even from afar and offer. So this is what it meant, that being worthy of receiving offerings brought even from far. Meaning, if the articles, and today if you say that I want to go and offer to the Arya Sangha, I don't have things here with me right now, but it is somewhere. You need to drive, you need to take Grab or whatever, right? Even to the far away, you should try to procure them even from far and offer to them. Those articles brought from afar and offered are called puna. All right, so that is the meaning of pahuna, the gift. The Arya Sangha, who are endowed with the four conditions, they are entitled to receive these offerings brought from afar from the donor, and more so because in accepting them, the donors earn great merit. Therefore, the Arya Sangha possess of the attribute of the Ahuneya. So, person who is receiving the gift is meaning to say is Ahuneya, Ahuneyo. All right, Ahuneyo, they are fit for gifts. They are fit to receive the offerings because they are virtuous. Right? Why they are virtuous? If they practice, they follow the Buddha's teaching, right? The Noble Eightfold Path. Okay, so this is what I call the virtuous, the Arya Sangha. Now, this is a very interesting Dhammapada. The Saṅghā Sahasam thousands, right? Vaga is verse. You can find this in Dhammapada 107. This is a story of Buddha's nephew. Right? This has something to do with the offering. Right? So it says in the English translation here, for 100 years, a man may tend the sacred fire in the forest. Yet if, only for a moment, one pays homage to a bhikkhu who has practiced insight development, this homage is indeed better than 100 years of making sacrifices. It's referring to the fire worship. Now, what does this mean here? This is when a story of Sariputta's nephew. Sariputta's nephew was then a Brahmin. As you know, during the ancient Buddha's time, the Brahmin, they practiced the what we call it, the fire worshipping, right? So during those days there were lots of hundreds. They do a lot of sacred fire in the forest. But here it says, no matter how many fire sacrifices you do, but if for only one moment, if you pay homage to just a bhikkhu who practice insight development, that homage is even better than you do hundreds and thousands of fire worshipping. And that is how powerful it is. Why is it? Because you are offering to something beneficial. You're offering to a virtuous person, a noble person, right? That leads, that practice the Noble Eightfold Path, right? That leads to Nibbana. Or comparing to a sacred fire. Now, does it mean that the sacred fire, into the sacred fire, that's you to liberation? No, right? A sacred some fires will not liberate, right? And that is what the Brahmins taught. The Brahmins have the wrong view. And that's why the Buddha always says they have the wrong view. So this is a very powerful Dhammapada verse. The story of Sariputta, fire worshipping. The next one, another sutta, the discourse about sacrifices. This you can find in SN 11.16. So at one time, the Blessed One was staying at the province of Rajagaha on Mount Vulture Peak. Then Sakka, Lord of Gods, went to the Blessed One, paid homage to the Buddha, and stood to one side. Standing to one side, Sakka, Lord of the Gods, asked the Blessed One a question in verse. For those people who make sacrificial offerings, searching for merit, to whom should they give to gain great results? Blessed One replied, the community of monks consists of the four types of disciples, practicing the path, and the 4 others who attain the fruit. These wise and virtuous disciples follow the straight way. For those people who make sacrificial offerings, searching for merit, the gift given to the community of monks generates great results. There you can find here, right? The 4 pairs, right? This is what the Blessed One is referring to. Okay, so this picture is just an illustration of Saka, Deva god who rules over the 4 great kings and the heaven of the 33 gods. And this is just a below of a statue. So now we next move on to Pahuneyo. Pahuneyo is worthy of hospitality. Okay, Pahuneyo means the members of community of Saṅghā. Pahuneyo here you can see it is a noun word, noun referring to a person, individual. Pahuneyo, just like Ahuneyo. Pahuneyo means members of the community of the Saṅghā are worthy of receiving even the offerings that are specially prepared for visiting relatives and friends who travel from far away places. Giving made to visitors from all the quarters is called hospitality, pahuna, right? Prepared with respect for the sake of beloved and dear relatives and friends. That is a meal for a guest. Pahuna means another word for hospitality. For instance, if a domestic householder prepare food, right, for the sake of their relatives, friends coming to visit them, a meal for the guests, that is called pahuna. There is no object of hospitality so worthy of it as the Saṅghā, one who is wholly endowed with pure and enduring qualities, and so it is fit to receive it. So, meaning to say that the food that you prepare for your dear relatives and friends, and that food, right, it actually it is more worthy to serve it to the Saṅghā, right? The Saṅghā comes first, right? So comes first because they are the one who is fully endowed with pure and endearing qualities compared with our own relatives and friends. So, Pahavaniva is worthy to be shown hospitality. Hold that Saṅghā is worthy to be placed first. So, meaning to say that if you have in the company of the Saṅghā and the ordinary, people, obviously the Saṅghā is worthy to be placed first. And that's what is called the meaning of it, right? Worthy of hospitality. Now, another interpretation here. Guests of Pahuneyo, guests who visit you from all the various quarters of Pahuna, as we said it just now, gifts and offerings such as food made ready for them are also called Pahuna. In this context, the context is second meaning. The second meaning is the gifts and offerings set aside for guests should be offered to the Saṅghā. If the Saṅghā visit your place, guests come only next to the Saṅghā. The Saṅghā deserve top priority because they are endowed with the 4 attributes discussed above. This you can see if you visit to any temple during the lunch puja and so on. Obviously, that's where we do the lunch dana, the lunch dana for the Saṅghā first. Then only the lay devotees will partake the meal. Also, the Saṅghā comes first. They are worthy of hospitality. That indeed is so because however important one guest may be, even if you have a VIP there, the Arya Saṅghā appeared in the world only when the Buddha appears. And the arising of the Buddha takes incalculable aeons. Right? So meaning even though you have a VIP there, right, the Saṅghā comes first. Right? They are the topmost priority. Further, the Saṅghā are so imbued with noble qualities that they are a source of pleasure and are the incomparable friend or relative that call at your door. Meaning if a Saṅghā comes to the door, to receiving arms round, right, this is really the highest merit. For this reason, the Saṅghā is entitled to receive special offerings meant for one's valued guests, Pahuneyo, right? So I hope this further interpretation will at least give you an idea or clearer picture of what Pahuneyo means, worthy of hospitality. Next, another noun called Dakineyo. Dakineyo is a person is worthy of gifts, being worthy of receiving offerings, offered with the belief that the offering will bear fruits in future existence. They are also worthy of offerings such as paying of respect by verbal praise, or the traditional offering of flowers, food, fruit or likes, as in done throughout Buddhist land across Asia and beyond. Any act of giving the belief is good result in the future existence is called dakina. Therefore, dakina means an object that is given, motivated by the belief in future benefit. So the Arya Sangha can make that object of offering efficacious as it is desired by the donor because they are endowed with the four supreme attributes mentioned above. In that sense, they deserve to receive offerings that are called dakina, hence they possess of the noble attribute of dakineya. So the Arya Sangha, so this is another interpretation, the Arya Sangha, purified object that is being offered in the sense that they put them it through their nobility and the nobility that they have been, they endow with the four supreme attributes mentioned. Dakinaya, Hito Dakineyo, the Arya Sangha who bestowed merit on the offering. This is another meaning by which the attribute of Dakineyo may be understood. So that is being worthy of receiving offerings offered with the belief that the offering will bear fruits in future existence. So if you bring the alms food, and when the monks they do the blessing, this is more like you're purifying, the objects of offering, right? Paying respect. So that is when you do that, then obviously there is a belief that the offerings will bear fruits, that you gain the merits for the future existence. And this is what we call the Arya Sangha who bestow merit on the offerings. Right? This is another meaning. Anjali Karaniyo is worthy of reverential salutations. Being worthy of receiving reverential salutation. It is worthy of being accorded by the whole world. The reverential salutation means Anjali Kama, right? Consisting of placing both hands or the palms together above the head. Thus, it is fit for reverential salutation, which is referred to Anjali Karaniya. Being endowed with the four noble qualities based on their right practice, the Arya Sangha are worthy of being venerated with joint palms raised to the head. The term for this attribute is defined as Anjali Karaniya etati Anjali Karaniyo. Those wishing to earn merit pay obeisance to this Arya. Hence, the Arya Sangha are Anjali Karaniyo. Right? Again, when we pay salutations to the Sangha, meaning we are paying obeisance to the Arya Sangha. And these are the Arya Sangha, they are worthy of veneration. Again, what is the noble? Right? Because they have, they are very virtuous. The noble eightfold path is where they practice straightforwardly, right? And this is how we supposed to show venerations to the Arya Sangha. Aruttarang Punya Ketam Lokasati is an incomparable field of merits to the world. Now, Keta means a field for cultivation of crops. Punya Keta means a field where merit is cultivated. It is just a metaphor for the Arya Sangha. A metaphor. A metaphor, what is it? What is a field cultivation of crop had to do with the Arya Sangha? Just a metaphor. Just as a field nurtures the seed sown in it, also the Arya Sangha nurtured the seeds of good deeds, the act of merits, sown to them, done towards them. How is that so? Again, it's through all the noble practice, right? When they have practiced to the right path, the right way, right? Obviously, they the result is they will have good deeds, act of merits. Here, the Sangha nurture the good deeds of the donors through the morality, concentration, and wisdom, which are like the nutrients of the soil. The Arya bestow great merit to the good deeds done towards them, and they are called the field that nurtures the seed of merits. Okay, so here it says a field. What is a field? The keta. A field where the king sows his seed is called the king's field. Likewise, the Arya Sangha, where all the three worlds sow the seeds of merit, are called the incomparable field, where the whole world sow the seeds of merits. What is this three world? This is referring to the threefold training, right? The threefold training is where there's the seed, they sow the seeds, right? This is the seed. The king sows the seed called the king's field. The Arya sows the seeds they call the three worlds. This is the incomparable fertile field where the whole world sow the seeds of merits. That is Anuttara Punya Ketam Lokasa. Okay, we have few more slides to go. Now we look at 2.6, 4 stages of awakening. In the Patama Attapugala Sutta, 8 people, AN 8.59, the Buddha has described the Arya Sangha as follows. Monks. There are these 8 individuals who are worthy of gifts, worthy of hospitality, worthy of offerings, worthy of reverential salutation, the unsurpassed field of merit for the world. Which 8? The one who has entered the stream, the one who has entered upon the course for the realization of the fruit of stream entry, the once returner, the one who has entered upon the course for the realization of the fruit of once returning, the non-returner, the one who has entered upon the course for the realization of the fruit of Arahant, the one who entered upon the course of Arahantship. Right? So again here you can see how it is being described, the 8 people in this sutta, AN 8.59. The noble Sangha, the Arya Sangha, consists of 8 types of noble person who are joined into 4 pairs in relation to the 4 stages of awakening. So to sum up with, there are 4 noble individuals. They are called the Arya Pugala, the stream enterer or the winner. Some translate as winner, called Sotapanna, the once returner, Sakadagami, and the non-returner, Anagami, and the worthy one called the Arahant. So these are the 4 types, these are the 4 pairs in relation to the 4 stages of awakening. Now the 8 noble persons are those who have realized one of these 8 stages of holiness, that is the 4 supramundane path, that is the Magga, and the 4 supermundane frictions, the Pala of this path. These are the 4 pairs. Okay, so the 4 pairs of person who form the Arya Sangha, right? Here you can see the stream enterers or the winners, those who have entered the stream leading to Nibbana. Then the Sakadagami, Anagami, and the Arahant. Right? Again here, we say that the path means that they are still in training. After they have already eradicated the fetters, then they gain the pala, they gain the fruition. Right? So this goes on to the next one, to Satakagami, Anagami, and Arahant. So how do you do that? How do they attain the 4 stages? And these are the 4 stages of awakening, distinguished by the fetters. In Pali, called Saṅghānussati, that they eliminate and the number of rebirths that remain for those who attain that. So there are 5 lower fetters and 5 higher fetters. Right? If you like to know more about this, you can refer to this sutta called AN 10.13 in Anguttara Nikaya 10.13. Okay, so the 5 lower fetters are basically the individuality view called Sakkaya Ditthi. The second one is skeptical doubt or Vicikicca. Attachment to right and ritual, Sila Vatama Paramasa. Right? So these are the 3 lower fetters that Sotapanna I would need to eradicate. And then sensual desire called kamachanda and iridyapada. So let's take a look at each one. Stream enterer, sotapanna. As I mentioned, the three lower factors. With the destruction of the three lower factors, the stream enterer, sotapanna, has achieved perfection in morality and has abandoned the three factors of the Sakaya Ditti, right, the doubt, and the rites and ritual. Okay, so they have already abandoned the three lower factors. Now, Sotapanna literally means one who enters the stream. The stream in Pali called Sotas. With the stream being the supramundane noble eightfold path, regarded as the highest Dhamma. The Sotapanna is also said to have opened the eye of the Dhamma, the Dhamma Chakku. Sotapanna reaches arahantship within 7 rebirths upon opening the eye of Dhamma. Because the Sotapanna has attained an intuitive grasp of the Buddhist doctrine, means Samadhi, having the right view, and has complete confidence, Saṅghā, in the three jewels, the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Saṅghā, and has removed the volitional formation, Saṅkhāra, that forced rebirth in the lower planes. That individual will not reborn in any plane lower than the human, right? Which is the animal, hungry ghost, or in hell. So they will not be reborn in any lower than the human realm. So what are these three factors? Let's take a look in deeper sense. Individuality view, or we call self-view, right? Sakaya Ditti, which is abandoning the Sakaya Ditti means the personality view or belief in the permanent self, really existing self, right? In Buddhism, it's called, we refer to the 5 aggregates. The 5 aggregates that constitute a self of a person or an ego, right? Thought of being a permanent. That is I, me, myself, mine. This is the self-view. The next one, which is a skeptical doubt, vicikiccha, the doubt about the awakening of the Buddha, the truth of his Buddha, and the practice of his noble disciples, is eradicated because the Sotapanna personally experiences the true nature of reality through the insight, and this insight confirms the accuracy of the Buddha's teaching. Remember, with the 4 stages of training, we always refer to the truth of the Dhamma. Practice the truth, right? Experiencing the true nature. So, if they have about the truth of the Dhamma, then this is referring to vicikiccha. They have the doubt. If they have doubt about this, then it is very difficult for them to enter the stream. And this is considered one of the 3 factors. Attachment to rites and ritual, silabata. Rituals and ascetic practices are disliked by those who take refuge in the Buddha, as these worships are unhelpful to always of the Buddha. Religious fact like Brahmanism, they practice the fire worshipping, the animal sacrificing, the 3 spirits, so on and so forth. This you can also see some from this Sigala Vada Sutta is regarding this Sigala who is worshipping in all the directions in the wrong way. So the Sotapanna realizes that deliverance can be won only through the practice of the Noble Eightfold Path. In short, there are no shortcuts to perfecting all these virtues, right? No shortcuts. And it has to have the right view. If you don't have the right view, then you are not practicing the true path, the true way, the straight way. Next is the once returner, Sakadagami. With the destruction of the 3 factors, as we mentioned, right, and the additional diminishing, right, not destruction, it's just additional diminishing of sensual desire and ill will correspond to greed, hatred, and delusion, one becomes a one returner, Sakadagami. Sakadagami literally means one who once sakim, from the word sakim, comes agachati. So this is a combination word, Sakadagami, will at most return to the realm of the senses, the lowest being human, and the highest being the Devas, wielding power over the creations of others one more time. Right? So this is Sakadagami. So both Sotapanna and Sakadagami have abandoned the first three fetters. The Sotapanna and Sakadagami are distinguished by the fact that the Sakadagami has weakened lust, hate, and delusion to a greater degree. So, meaning Sotapanna, the first three, Sakadagami, the first three, and also Kamachanda and Vyapada, right? Diminishing, what I call, has weakened. It's still weakened, not completely, fully eradicated yet, but has weakened lust, hatred, and delusion to a greater degree. So this is one's return now. So what are the five lower factors? Sensual desire. The hindrance of sensual desire, called kamachanda, is latching onto thoughts of feelings based on the pleasures of the five senses. Sensory desire refers to that particular type of wanting that seeks for happiness through the senses of sight, sound, smell, taste, and physical feeling. When we allow the mind to indulge in such attraction, we lose our concentration. So we need to apply mindfulness and be aware of how the mind operates. Remember just now the slide where the Pindapat, the monk went on the alms, and this is what we call the practice of the hindrance of the sensual desire, kamachanda. Right? As you walk along the path and go for alms, how is the state of my mind? So this is where we call, are we indulging in or concentration? Are we indulging through the five senses, the sight, the sound, the smell, the taste, and the physical feeling? So this is what we call. So when they allow the mind to indulge in such attraction, so when they go along the arms, they will lose concentration, right? They will lose the mindfulness. And this is what we call, they apply mindfulness in the practice. Ill will, vyapada. Ill will refers to all kinds of thought related to wanting, to reject, feelings of hostility, resentment, hatred, and bitterness. One should take note of them, not necessarily suppressing them, but seeing how they arise. When there's ill will, there is no loving kindness, no compassion. Again, going through the Pindapat, and if you have the if you lose the concentration, if you have the ill will, right? You have no loving kindness. You have no compassion towards to the donors there, right? So then you became to make comparison. That's not a good training, huh? It is noteworthy that even at this second stage on the path, sensuality, kamaraga, sensuality, it refers to kamaraga, and ill will, vyapada, the fourth and the fifth fetters are only weakened, but not destroyed. Their destruction is, however, inevitable. So it is through constant training, it's through diligent training that they're only able to overcome it. Now, non-returner, anagami, with the destruction of the five lower factors, the disciple becomes a non-returner, anagami, who takes spontaneous rebirth in the form realm, usually in a special region called the pure abodes, and attain final nibbana without returning from that world. The anagami has achieved perfection in mental discipline and further eradicated the factors of sensual lust and ill will. Anagami literally means one who does not, which is an, right? Kang agachati. So, in the compound word anagami, having overcome sensuality, does not return to the human world or any unfortunate world lower than after death. Instead, anagami are reborn in one of the five special worlds in Rupa Dhatu called the Sudhavasa. Sudhavasa is one of the pure abodes in the heavenly realm, and there they attain Nibbana. Some of them are reborn a second time in the higher world of the pure abodes. So this anagami here, it's simple enough to understand, right? And now we walk on to the Arahant. With the complete destruction of the taints, the disciple becomes an Arahant, the worthy one, a fully liberated one. The Arahant has achieved perfection in wisdom and put an end to five more factors, namely attachment to five material existence, attachment to immaterial existence, the conceit, restlessness and ignorance. Arahant is fully awakened person. They have abandoned all the 10 factors. I remember the 5 lower factors and the 5 higher factors. Upon that, Parinibbana would never be reborn in any plane of world, having wholly escaped the samsara. An Arahant has attained awakening by following the path given by the Buddha. In Theravada Buddhism, the term Buddha is reserved for ones who are self-enlightened, such as Siddhartha Gautama Buddha, who discovered the path by himself. So this is a chart that you can decipher at your own. Now, this is a sutta called Dutiya Sariputta Sutta in SN 55.5. Now, one day the Buddha asked Sariputta, they speak of factor of stream entry. What is this factor of stream entry? Sariputta replied, Sir, the factors of stream entry are associating with true person, listening to the true teaching, the Dhamma, rationing application of mind, and practicing in line with the teaching. Right? Sadhu, sadhu, Sariputta, the Buddha says. Okay. Then the Buddha asked again, Sariputta, they speak of the stream. What is this stream? Sir, the stream is simply this Noble Eightfold Path. That is right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. Sadhu, sadhu, Sariputta, the Buddha said. So as you can see here, the stream, and just now, the factor for stream entry. This is a factor for stream entry. And this is the stream. What is the stream? The stream is the Noble Eightfold Path. This is the training. This is the training part that they have to go through. And that the training part encompassing all the 8 goodness, which is the right view, right intention, so on and so forth. And then the Buddha asked again, Sariputta, they speak of a stream enterer. What is a stream enterer? Sir, one who possesses this Noble Eightfold Path is called a stream enterer, the venerable of such and such a name of a Klang. Right, so sadhu, sadhu, Sariputta. So in essence, that if one has already got into the stream, already practiced the Noble Eightfold Path diligently, right, already very, how shall I say, know the Dhamma rightfully, this is the person who possesses the noble path is called a stream enterer. So what are the 4 factors of stream entry that they have? Okay, they possess confirmed confidence in the Buddha, right? They possess confirmed confidence in the Dhamma. They possess confidence in the Saṅgha, and they possess virtues loved by the noble ones. People have to possess these 4 things in order for the Buddha to declare that they are a stream enterer, not liable to be reborn in the underworld, and they are bound for awakening. So the 4 factors of stream entry, right? Confidence in the Buddha, confidence in the Dhamma, right? And confidence in the Saṅgha, and they possess virtues. What are the virtues? The virtues that they develop through the training of the Noble Eightfold Path, right? So this is what you can read this in the Patama Vera Sutta in AN 9.27. Now, what is the Dhamma eye? What does the Dhamma eye see? In the famous story where Upatissa Sariputta, who at that point is a wanderer in another sect, gains Dhamma eye, when hearing the following words from Venerable Asaji, and then again Venerable Kolita Moggallana, in turns gain the Dhamma eye. After hearing the words from Upatissa Sariputta, the wanderer said, so this is Venerable Asaji, this picture illustration here, right? And Venerable Sariputta, or rather, that time, there was Kolita, Upatissa, sorry, asking him, the wanderer. So he says, whatever phenomena arise from the cause and the cessation, such is the teaching of the Tathagata, the great contemplative. Right? Sariputta, or rather, Upatissa asked Venerable Asaji. Venerable Asaji says, listen, I'm also a newcomer. I know this much. And Sariputta said, just tell me this much as I can. So Venerable Asaji mentioned this verse, right? Ye Dhamma Hetu Patama. Okay, this is the famous one. Te sam hetum tathagata aha. Te sam chayo nirodo. Evam Vadi Mahasamano. So this you can see from the Mahavagga chapter. Okay, so what this short teaching has in common with the Four Noble Truths is the notion of causation, the original means, cause. It is a relationship to cessation. Right? The formula for the Dhamma I is sometimes followed by a description of its impact. In the case of Sariputta and Moggallana, this takes in the form of a poem, right? So, meaning Venerable Asaji mentioned this verse to Venerable Sariputta or Upatissa. But when Venerable Kolita mentioned to his good friend Kolita, right, he just mentioned this in the form of a poem. So he says, he told Moggallana, I say, okay, just this Dhamma, just this much, and you experience the sorrowless state, unseen, neglected for many 10,000s of aeons. All right. In this case, the emphasis is on attaining of a sorrowless state, one of the attributes of the goal of the noble search. Obviously, this is just a short excerpt. You can read this more, a very interesting story from this Mahavagga. So the part of stream entry, continuing with the arising of the Dhamma I, insight into the causal principles underlying the arising and cessation of suffering or stress, has the function of cutting off the first three factors binding to samsara. On one occasion, the Buddha was living in Savatthi in Jeta Group, Ananda Park. Here he addressed the bhikkhus. He attends appropriately. This is stress. This is the origination of stress. This is the cessation of stress. This is the way leading to the cessation of stress. As he attends appropriately in this way, three factors are abandoned in himself: self-identity view, the doubt, the grasping at precept and practices, rites and rituals. Because I say that the destruction of the taints is is for one who knows and see, right? Not for one who does not know and see. One who knows and see what? Wise attention and unwise attention. When one attends unwisely, unarisen taints arise, and arisen taints increase. When one attends wisely, unarisen taints do not arise, and arisen taints are abandoned. This you can read in Sabbasava Sutta, all the taints in Majjhima Nikaya number 2. So in summary, the Buddha taught the monks how to remove taints. Taints is called asava, which are mental defilements that prevents one from liberation. He taught them how some taints are removed by seeing, by restraining, by using, by enduring, by avoiding, by removing, by developing. Only when these taints, the asava, are removed, then one can end samsara, the cycle of rebirth. So last one is the monastic Saṅgha and the creation of the noble Saṅgha. It is the purpose of the Buddha in his conduct for the well-being of the world to teach all people to progress along the lines of development, become Sotapanna, Sakadagami, Anagami, and Arhat. Even when the Arya Saṅgha had been newly established, and it was then a very small community consisting of only 60 monks, the Buddha sent all of his members in all directions to propagate the Dhamma. Right? The community was then only 3 months old. Here, the spirit of acting for the good of the people is strongly evident. Right? The Buddha have says, no two persons can go in the same way. Go and propagate the Buddha. That is what is being said. In short, the Arya Saṅgha has been set up both as an instrument and as the starting point and the stronghold for working out the idea of establishing the universal Saṅgha with the main function of teaching all people, regardless of caste, class, sect, and nationality. The Dhamma that will help them in the self-development to become Arya, noble, or truly civilized. And it is for this reason that the conventional Saṅgha of monks was founded. The monks thus led the people in creating the universal community of noble, enlightened, and truly civilized people. Now, of course, during the time of the Buddha, the Arya Sangha, the 60 Arahants, they were already Arahants. As the socialization of Buddhism continued to progress, more and more, people have joined the order. Not all the time, they were, when they joined the order, they were not immediately stream emperor, or not even the stream emperor, or not even the four stages. They are joining as the starting point. Right? Because of that, they are still in training. But because they are walking the path, the noble path, they are still called the Sangha, but they're termed as the conventional Sangha. So that is why the conventional Sangha, the Sammuti Sangha, will form, as opposed to the Arya Sangha, the original one. So the words of the Buddha in sending out his disciple at that time reflect very well the ideal of erecting the world noble Sangha in the Buddha's own word. This is in Vinaya Pitaka. It says, "Go forth, O bhikkhus, for the good of the many, for the happiness of the many, out of compassion for the world, for the benefit, for the good, for the happiness of gods and men." All right, so he now, encourage all the arahants, the 60 arahants, to go separate way of the Buddha, the Dhamma. So now the foundation of the Sangha, right? Buddhism was originally called the Dhamma Vinaya, the doctrine and the discipline. It is also indicate that Dhamma and the Vinaya are the two limbs that form Buddhism. This concept is direct connection with the two kinds of Sangha. Conventional Sangha, Sammuti Sangha of monks, depends for its existence and stability on the Vinaya. It is the Vinaya that gives life to the Bhikkhu Sangha. A person is ordained as a Bhikkhu or is admitted to the Sangha of monks in accordance to the rule of the Vinaya. His Bhikkhu titleship also ceases if he makes an incurable transgression against the Vinaya. Right? The rules of the Vinaya govern all activities of the community of monks and all aspects of the Bhikkhu life. Bhikkhus, monks, or bhikkhu are graded according to concrete disciplinary rules. A bhikkhu is classed as a navaka or a newly ordained one. If he has been admitted to the order for not more than 5 years and is required to live in Nisaya or dependence on an Arya or teacher, that is, he is dependent. Nisaya is dependent. As soon as his years of standing in the monkhood exceed 5 years, he becomes free of the dependence and is classed as Nisaya Mutaka, an independent monk. When he completes 10 years of standing in monkhood, he becomes a Thera or an elder. Now, if he qualifies, he can act as an Upajjhaya or a preceptor. And obviously, if he completes 20 years, he is called a Mahathera. Rights and privileges are vested on the monks on equal terms according to the rules of the Vinaya. So meaning to say, even the rules are acted on equal terms according to the grades, right? But on equal terms. But they are classes of, they grade the bhikkhus accordingly. Not on the other hand, is based on the Dhamma. While the Vinaya governs the external life of the monk, his bodily others, his inner and spiritual side is guided by the Dhamma. Right? Not only the monks, but all people are expected to follow the guidance of the Dhamma. In contrast to the formal admittance to membership in the conventional Sangha of monks, membership in the noble Sangha of disciple is a matter of self-development and inner attainment. Right? As soon as a person, whether a monk or lay person, realizes the Four Noble Truths, gains the first vision of Nibbana, he automatically becomes a Sotapanna and simultaneously a member of the Noble Sangha. You need to become at least Sotapanna, become a noble, the Arya Sangha. His further progress on the path to the final goal is graded solely according to the degree of his self-development and inner without intervention of any external factors, whether age, sex, authority, or even time of space. Thus, a novice, 12 years of age, may be an arahant, while an aged monk, 70 years old, may only be a worldling. That's how it explains. not attending even Sotapanna. And the wise layman may achieve arahantship in a period of an hour, while many monks may strive in vain throughout their lives to secure that. So this is what it mentioned. So the Buddha says in the Dhammapada, verse 142, he who, though dressed in fine apparels, exercises tranquility, is calm, controlled, certain, and chaste, and has ceased to injure all other beings, he is indeed a Brahman, Samana, a bhikkhu. Okay. Those members of the noble Sangha who are far advanced on the path or have reached the summit will find the Bhikkhu Sangha the best community for them to live in. And it is these people who will best preserve the conventional Sangha, the Samuti Sangha of monks, and will act as Kalyana Mitta or good spiritual friends to those who are treading the path after them. Right? So they serve as good kalamita for those who are treading the path. Remember, the path and the fruition. So they are still in training. So they are good teachers for them. So this is just a recap. Right? So we are almost ending the Sangha. So if now you were to recite, you would be able to have a better understanding, or you feel more grateful, and because you've understood every single one. What does it mean? Especially from these 4 stages of what we call the training. And of course, these are what are they worthy of? This one here, Anjana Sutta, the Tara bread, this is an extract. So a monk endowed with 8 qualities is worthy of gifts, worthy of hospitality, worthy of offerings, worthy of respect. And what does it mean? What 8 qualities? Okay, yourself. This one, which is what do call it? A shorter explanation. So this is the 8. If a monk endowed with the 8 qualities, he is virtuous. He practices according with the Patimokkha. Patimokkha, which is the Vinaya rules for the monastic. Given food, whether forced or if he eats carefully without name. That's why when we contemplate it on the food, right? The food is not for what do you call it, for beauty, for the food is only for the nourishment, not for the taste, not for the beautification of the body, but for the sustaining and for the nourishment of the body. He feels disgust at bodily misconduct, verbal misconduct, mental misconduct, because his state of mind is already very well trained, right? He is composed and easy to live and doesn't harass other monks. He is easy to be advised. When in training, he gives rise to the thought, whether the other monks want to train or not, I'll train here. Right? So don't bother, I train myself, yeah? Follows the Noble Eightfold Path, have strong determination and persistency. Endowed with these 8 qualities, a monk is worthy of gifts, worthy of hospitality, worthy of praise, worthy of respect, and incomparable field of merits to the world. So this is the shorter version. This is a longer version. If you want to know more about this, then you can refer to chart. So I presented it both here. All right, so that concludes. So now look at the past exam question. Here it says higher just 2020, what are the 9 virtues of Saṅghā? I think clearly these virtues, purpose of recollecting these virtues in our daily practice. For the senior level, it says, what are the 9 virtues of the Saṅghā? Explain briefly these virtues and illustrate with incidents from the lives of Buddha disciples. All right, so you're thinking that, oh, now it's time already, past exam questions already here. But to answer this question, perhaps maybe to give you a certain guideline, some pointers. If you come across such question, what are the 9 virtues of the Saṅghā? Explain briefly these virtues and illustrate with incidents. All right. Now, in all my past slides, right, very few incidents were provided. But if the question asks, illustrate incidents from the lives of the Buddha disciples, you may refer to the following slides. Okay. So I'm going to go here because I already passed the 4 p.m. Venerable Moggallana awakening. Right. So this is where You can refer to this Pachalayana Sutta for 87.58. So it says here, explain brief the virtues. How does Sangha practice to gain that virtue? So this example about Venerable Moggallana, how he practiced, right, to attain arahantship. So he went in solitude. He practiced very well, he meditated, but he all come with sleep. Okay? He's sleepiness. So this awakened one, right? This awakened one, the Buddha did not lose sight of him. Right? So because whenever Sariputta and Moggallana joined the order, okay, so then the Buddha gave them the name. Okay, you are Sariputta now, you're Moggallana. Then off you go, do your practice. So they went separate ways. So Moggallana chose to stay in this nearby abode in the forest near the village of Kalawalaputa in Magadha, right? Whereas Sariputta chose to be nearby to the Buddha. So the Buddha did not lose sight of this Moggallana. So with his supernormal vision, he perceived this Moggallana had difficulties, right? He had difficulties. So now he presented himself. The Buddha presented himself, and he says that uh, uh, whenever Moggallana saw the master standing before him, a good part of the fatigue already vanished because the master is really Buddha. Nodding, Moggallana. Are you nodding? Then Moggallana, of course, telling, yes, Lord, I'm nodding. Right? So after the everyone had instructed him on overcome sleepiness and the avoidance of excitement, Venerable Moggallana asked the following question. So, in a way, oh Lord, can you briefly explain how a becomes liberated by eliminating of craving? One who has reached the final end, the final security from bondage, the final holy light, the final consummation, and is foremost among gods and men. Herein, Moggallana, a monk has learned this. No thing is fit to be clung onto, right? Which means let go, no attachment. When a monk has learned that no thing is fit to be clung to, he fully knows everything. By fully knowing everything, he fully comprehends everything. And fully comprehending everything, and so on and so forth. So you read all this in the sutta. If by the master instruction, he could free himself from these last fetters and attain to perfect a deliverance and deliverance of wisdom. Sukalana is deliverance of the mind and wisdom in all his fullness and depth. Thus, Venerable Moggallana had become one of the Arahant. He admitted that he could well say about himself that, supported by the master, a disciple may obtain a great state of super knowledge. Supported by the master means the master had, given him a lot of encouragement, support. So Moggallana, as he later said, attained sainthood by a quick penetration, kipabina, that is, in 1 week, he progressed. Was difficult, dukkha patipada, requiring the helpful prompting, sasakara of the master. So he was having quite difficulty, but he required some prompting from the master, right? So with that, in 1 week, he attained arahantship. So this is the nodding phrase. So I'll just go very quickly. He said, are you nodding, Moggallana? Are you nodding? So well then, Moggallana, whatever perception you have in mind when drowsiness had sent you, you don't attend to that perception. Don't pursue it. Right? Then he said that, but if by doing this, you don't shake off your drowsiness, right? Even though your drowsiness is still there, recall your awareness to the Dhamma as you have heard and memorized, re-examine it, ponder it over the mind. But then if that is also not possible, okay, you have to shake off, which means that here it says that pull both your earlobes and rub your limbs with your hand. Right? So there are all what we call the steps given by the Buddha. Then he says that if that is not helping you, then you can get up from your seat, wash your eyes with water, look around, right, and so on. Then 6, if that is also not possible, right, then resolve on perception by day, by night, means of awareness, and so on. Then 7 is you can lie in front and behind, meditate, walking back and forth, senses immersed, your mind may not stray upwards. So these are the 7 steps that the Buddha had prompted him, give him some support that helped Moggallana to train himself. Right? So you can read about this sutta here, the Nodding Sutta. So if you come across another question about elaborate the role of the Sangha as a field of merit, Sangha field of merit, this is one sutta that can help you to give you some pointers from AN 5.34. This is Siha Sutta. Siha is a general Siha. It says that I heard that on one occasion, Blessed One staying in Vasali, the then General Siha went to the Blessed One and having bowed, sat at one side and then asked the Blessed One, is it possible, Lord, to point out a fruit of generosity visible in here and now? Then the Blessed One said, it is possible, Siha. One who gives, one who is a master of giving, is dear and charming to people at large. And the fact that people who is generous, a master of giving, is dear and charming to people at large. This is the fruit of generosity visible here and now. Okay, if you want to go more on this sutta, you can go to Sutta Central, you go to AN, and then you find from this sutta, you come to this Suwananga, and you select Siha Sutta AN 5.34. Right? That will give you a further detail of the sutta. Right? But then in a short excerpt here, it says, as for the four fruits of generosity, there are four fruits of generosity visible in here and now. They are pointed out by the Blessed One. It is not the case that I go by conviction in the Blessed One. Right? Siha is generous, a doer, a supporter of the Sangha. I am one who gives, a master of giving, and when I approach any assembly of people, noble, warriors, Brahman, householder, or contemplative, I do so confidently and without embarrassment. But when the Blessed One says to me, at the break up of body after death, one who gives, one who is master of giving, reappears in good destination, the heavenly world that I do not know. That is where I go by conviction is the Blessed One. So the Buddha said, so it is, Siha, so it is. At the breakout of the body after death, one who gives, one who is a master of giving, reappears in good destination, the heavenly world. This is in Siha Sutta, AN 5.34. So in short, there is if you do wholesome things, you get wholesome results. If you are good, you're good in generosity, right? At the breakup of your body, you will be born in a good destination, the heavenly world. So this is what the General Siya was asking the Buddha. Can you tell me? Can you let me know what is this generosity all about? So another one, elaborate role of Sangha as a field of merit. This, you can use this Sutta Mahakassapa and the poor old woman's offering. So in Savatthi, there was an old poor woman. In some sutta, it said a poor man. It doesn't matter. A poor woman who had neither relatives nor home. Once she was seriously ill and lay in an open air. Sometimes when servants of a rich family happened to pour beside her the water used for rinsing rice, she would use a piece of tile to collect the dirty water for drinking. Mahakassapa, as you know, Mahakassapa is the third Buddhist council, first Buddhist council, felt pity for her and paid a visit to her. The old lady was surprised to see him and said, I am in extreme poverty. No one else in this country is poorer than me. Isn't there any person in this world giving offerings to the monks? Why do you come to see me? You should instead try to save me from poverty. So the old woman said, you asking me, you should try and save me. Mahakassapa replied, no one in this world dignified and benevolent than the Buddha or his disciple. I am here to save you in poverty. I have thought of helping you to meet your material needs. But material goods can only save you for the time being, and you will become poorer in the future. It would be better if I offer anything to me. It would be better if you offer anything to me that you can accumulate merits for your future life and be reborn in a wealthy family or in the heavenly realms. This is how Mahakassapa responded to the poor old lady. But then old lady could not find anything to offer, and she cried sadly, I had neither food nor clothes to offer to you. Then Mahakasapa said, one who has the will to give alms is not a poor man. One who has a sense of shamefulness is the follower of the Buddha. You possess these two rare treasures in the world, hence you are not poor at all. Those rich people who do not give alms and are shameless are the most ignorant and the poorest men. So now the old poor woman was in great joy upon hearing the teachings of Mahakasapa, and she cherished much hopes for the future. So she offered Mahakasapa what she had. She only had the water used for rinsing rice. So Mahakasapa drank it before her, and her heart was filled with happiness. Right after the teaching of Mahakasapa. Not long after that, right, after not long, the old woman passed away and entered the Deva realm. Due to the merits of offering water to Mahakasapa, she became a beautiful Deva. Once she recalled her good karma and the kindness of Mahakasapa, hence she descended from the heavens and spread flowers on Mahakasapa. That is how a marriage would be, right? This the story of an old woman. Basically, is even no matter how poor, no matter how much material, how little you have, when you give, that is considered a good marriage. And another question, what are the 9 virtues of the Sangha? This is more on the senior level. Explain briefly the virtues, illustrate incidents from the life of the Buddha, right? This you can use another one, Bahiya Sutta, right? A famous Bahiya Sutta. Sorry, bear with me, few more minutes. I've heard on the occasion, Blessed One was staying near Sawati, Ananda Pindika, Bahiya at the bark cloth, living in Suparata. So he says that, Bahiya, you Bahiya, the Deva said, you Bahiya are neither Arahat. So Bahiya says that, he thought he was Arahant, but the Deva said, no, you're not an Arahant. So Bahiya said, no, who can tell me I'm Arahant? So you go and you go and see the Buddha. So he went to see Buddha. So while the Buddha was on his arms round, so he asked the Buddha, he said, teach me the Dhamma, teach me the Dhamma. Then the Buddha said, Bahiya, this is not the right time, right? Because we are on arm round. So Bahiya asked again the second time. And then say, teach me the Dhamma, teach me the Dhamma. Buddha again say, not the right time. So for the third time, he says, right? But then now he says, the third time, Bahiya said to the Blessed One, it is hard to know for sure what dangers there may be for the Blessed One's life, or what dangers there may be for mine. Teach me the Dhamma, O Blessed One, teach me the Dhamma. So that will be for my long-term welfare and bliss. Right, so then Bahiya said, this is the famous one. In reference to the seen, there will only be seen. In reference to the heard, only the heard. In reference to the sense, only the sense. In reference to the cognized, only the cognized. That is how you should train yourself. When for you there will be only the seen in reference to the seen, only the heard in reference to the heard, only the sense in reference to the sense, only the cognized in reference to the cognized. Then Bahiya, there is no you in connection with that. When there is no you in connection with that, there is no you there. When there is no you there, you are neither here nor yonder nor between the two. This is the end of stress, right? So I know this is a bit difficult to understand in a very short period, but I just want to give you a gist of what Bahiya Sutta. You can refer to this Bahiya, which I'm going to send you a translation from Ajahn Brahm, which is quite good, of how he explained behind the story of Bahiya after this lesson. So that's it. That completes my Saṅghānussati. I hope this is very helpful to you. Right, Brother T. So I conclude my lesson here. Sorry I took so much time, right? Because this is my first lesson. I'm trying to figure out how to manage my time here. Right, so with this I end. Thank you very much. Okay. Buddha sasarang cirang titatu. Buddha sasanang cirang titatu. Buddha sasanang cirang titatu. May the Buddha dispensation endure long. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.